Well, hello, and welcome to Opal City Confidential, a Starman podcast. I'm joined by Dave Steele. Say hi, Dave.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us.
We're here to talk a lot of comics. This is going to be one long session. We're going to record the next three episodes because I was going when I was getting ready. We have a Times Past. We have an annual, which is basically a Times Past on steroids,
Yeah.
and then we have probably my favorite, Talking with David.
Yes. Very much.
Um,
Yeah.
it's
We've
a
already
nerd.
been,
It's a nerd, but we're going to start with A Times Past. And for me, it's kind of weird reading it. It is Times Past with Will Payton, a hero once despised despite himself.
yeah.
And we get to see Robinson write the previous Starman.
Yeah.
And I think this is, well, Dave, let you start. What do you think of the cover?
Oh, I like it. I like the symmetry. It's Tony Harris, obviously. We've got Will Payton in the middle, raising his fists and miming that for the benefit of our YouTube viewers. And he's flanked by a very Tony Harris Batman and a Ted, or is it David? What looks like a Ted Knight Starman. Certainly the Ted Knight Starman costume, but given the details, it's probably David Knight that's
Because David plays a bigger part in this story than I remembered. And it makes sense. It really makes sense.
yeah.
But I like it too. It looks like an art. It's very Art Deco, which I'm always happy to see Art Deco.
Yeah, it's very much, it's Tony Harris giving us Will Payton in the Jack Knight style, really, in a way.
It makes the black and red costume look. Now I understand how the star works better.
Yeah.
Because on the other costume it was
kind of lopsided.
You thought it was lopsided, but it's upside down. It's just upside down.
Yeah. So interesting in this. I remember this one was published September 1997, round about which was the weekend I went to a Doctor Who convention where I met Peter Davison for the first time.
Oh, very cool.
This was a very exciting time. But this issue prompted me to go to one of the back issue places in Glasgow and buy the two issues of the Will Payton series that David Knight was involved in, because I'd never read any of the Will Payton Starman, so I was intrigued enough after this issue to go and start doing a little bit of digging. So I went off and read the one that you've covered, obviously, but gets mentioned in here when Will meets David and meets the mist who's calling himself Nimbus and all that sort of stuff. So it's an interesting.
Yeah, and I've just because this is more. This isn't. I'm going to say this. This is a Will Payton story that is more. It's not a Roger Stern Starman. It's very much. I don't know. We'll talk about that because this is the first time you and me have talked about Will Payton. Oh, yeah. You know what's weird? I didn't realize this. The last issue I covered of Will Payton was issue 36. And this is 36. Yeah, that's weird. That's weird. I did not. That is incredibly good, because that's the one where I kind of thought I've been saying, folks, that it wasn't. The seduction of Starman was really kind of put me off my feed, because it was so anemic, and empty of anything. I love the Stern stuff, but I've had the last two issues I like because they gave them team ups. Me and Dave were talking that before. Is team up?
Yeah,
but
the Monreal one's a lot of fun, and obviously like with the
Monreal one's
Mr. Nebula.
And I forgot all about those guys.
Yeah, because that was funny, because I was listening to it, as I often do when I was walking around the big supermarket nearby, and the moment when you'd forgotten that they were Justice League characters.
Yeah, it's probably doing the recording. I was like, I haven't read them in so long. I'm old, folks.
It was quite funny. It was good to come at them fresh. I mean, the Will Payton series is interesting. I hadn't read the whole thing until I read it during lockdown, so that's a few years ago now. I read it all the way through, and I felt that the first half was the Roger Stern stuff, was proper solid 80s superhero soap opera stuff, really satisfying, really consistent artwork.
Doesn't reinvent the wheel. It's not a masterpiece, but you get what you want. You get what you pay for in every issue,
exactly,
and you're entertained. And
then I felt in the second half of it, my enjoyment tailed off enormously. My Earth 2 podcast colleague Mr. Peter Watson. Hi, Peter, if you're listening. He and I have kind of one of our several minor disagreements over that. Pete's of the opinion that it doesn't tail off, or maybe he just enjoys it as much. I'm not sure if Pete was reading it at the time in a way that I wasn't. So maybe that's something more to do with it, character loyalty, whatever. I'll ask him next time I see him.
Yeah.
But I felt that the first half was definitely stronger, and you know, it lasts, I think, about a year and a half after Stern goes, which kind of says it all in a way, I think.
Well, they were doing a reconstructing because he is the big star in that Eclipso storyline. Him and Valor really are
that's true.
The main protagonists. Yeah. I think they're just tidying stuff up. I mean, I bought an entire run of this during the lockdown, and then it sat in a comic box.
Yeah.
Until I started doing this podcast, and I read it, and I'm purposefully not reading ahead.
Yes.
Because I want it fresh. It's like with my reread of Starman. There have been 2 times, now 3. Well, now this doesn't count because I was doing all 3 issues. It was homework. It wasn't. I've read ahead because I've started an arc and gone, fuck it, I want to read all of it.
Yeah.
It's not, it's going to be 6-8 months before I finish this. I'll read it again because I kind of want to see everything fresh. This one, because the basic plot of this is him just thinking about his career and am I a good hero? And just happens to be flying over Turk County. And then we know why we're getting a journal entry from the Shade. Did the Shade, when I was reading it,
yeah, it's a bit confusing the way it flips from one type of cursive lettering to another.
Yeah, so sometimes it's Will, right? Thinking, and then other times it's the Shade.
Yeah. I think Will's narration is in green, but the Shade narration bits they kind of frame the little box outs.
Yeah, and it's yellowed paper. It looks like yeah.
And the aspects that recap is the Will Payton character's history up to that point. So this was useful for me at the time because I hadn't read the Will Payton book, so I was appreciative of the recap, and then because I reread Will Payton all the way through, and I read Jack's series all the way through during lockdown. So I had a much greater appreciation of issue 36 of the Jack book when I read it than I had previously, because I'd read the Will Payton book by this point, and I knew the context of everything that the Shade was talking about. I think it's an interesting one, this, because the whole tone of it, the title, "A Hero Once Despite Himself," it seems to talk about Will's absolute lack of confidence in himself, which I think is fair. It kind of felt consistent with what I remember reading it.
He always had a lot of self-doubt. He is not yet, even meeting and teaming up with Superman doesn't make him feel 100% sure. He goes on his walkabout, which I thought was a great story, where he just gives up and then he goes and becomes a stunt man. And it's, it's kind of weird. He's the hero of the West. He's like the only superhero in a 4-state area.
Yeah.
So it's very consistent. And I mean, I need to, I am just getting into, this is I'm at issue 36 on both books now. And there's only like 10 more issues, maybe 12.
Finishes about, oh god, it's about 42, 43, something like that, isn't it? There's an Eclipso storyline at the end. Spoilers.
Yeah, which is very good, folks. That's something I would like them to collect in an Omni or a compendium. It is a really good. It's one of those mini events, which DC sometimes did really well. I just read one in the Justice Society compendium, the Day of Judgment. That thing was great. I'd never read it. Ever.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember saying to you on comment one of your posts, it was so exciting at the time because there'd been all these rumors about, because Hal Jordan had been dead for a few years, and I think it was in Comics International I read it, or I remember driving to a comic mart, and talked to the friend that was driving the van, because I was working for someone else at that comic mart, and have you heard this rumor about Hal Jordan might be the Spectre, and everyone thought it was brilliant, and it was so well done.
It was.
So Judgment did it so well, and the JSA were so centric and so involved. But yeah, the Eclipso event that Will and Monel are involved in, that was the annual sort of crossover summer 1992, wasn't it?
Yeah, I only have the one issue that starts it where it's got the little jewel on it, the black jewel on it. And folks, I'm in the middle of watching. I'm almost at the end. I'm on episode 9 of Stargirl season 2.
Oh yes.
Okay, Dave's told me I need to keep watching, and I've not listened to him, and I was wrong. I found season 1 was a little too slow for me. Season 2, chef kiss. They get it.
Yeah.
They really, really get it. But you can't have the two male hunks look like twin brothers, man. It's really, I'm having a hard time telling these two dudes apart.
Yeah.
But no, it is. Johnny Thunder? Oh my God.
Yeah, I know.
It made me sympathetic to every Johnny Thunder now, because you see how sad he is about being such a wank and everybody knowing it.
Yep.
Everybody thinks I'm a bit of a dork.
How did that episode finish? The last one that you watched?
Rick killed his uncle.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's fucked. I was like, you didn't go there. Yeah.
It's yeah. There's some really. I don't want to. I'm not going to. I think I might have hinted at. I had it in the past, but there's some stuff coming up. I remember I was just like freaking out, and Steve watched it, and he was like, "Yeah, yeah," and I was like, "What?" There's some really good stuff. I shall say no more.
The young lady. It's also the young lady who is the new Dr. Midnight. That version of Beth Chapel.
She is amazing.
She is why John's made Beth. I think they've younged Beth down.
Yes.
With their reincarnation, because they die in the Eclipso story. Her and Yolanda die in the Eclipso. The story we're talking about, which is I'm not even there yet, is the last 4 issues, 41 through 45 are the Eclipso arc.
Yeah, and then there's the Eclipso summer event. Then there's the Eclipso series, which ran for about 1.5 years, and that's where they kill off Peacemaker and the Creeper and Wildcat and Dr. Midnight and a couple of other.
It's a Bart Sears book, isn't it?
Yeah, he's on it for a while.
Yeah, then, I like him. I'm a big fan of him.
Most of them came back, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's it. But that's kind of what that leads us into. This is because this is Robinson. This is the Starman directly prior to Jack.
Yeah,
and I think he's purposely folding Will in and adding the Turk County thing just as a neat little that he's flying over it. That's why we're covering this, because why Shade cares, because it's about Opal, and the Shade is, the biggest fan of the Starman family there is. He's a bigger fan than say you and me are.
Sure, no, it's a good doing it. I mean, I think given stuff that's going to start developing,
yes, and that's obviously.
He obviously had to bring Will in at some point. So doing it the one time he happened to be nearby to Opal City is a good way of doing it.
I think it is. And you get, because I'm assuming, I'm going to say this, and I'm not, that this is, I bet there are fans who are Will Payton fans and then maybe not Jack fans, and vice versa. You know what I mean? Because if they're two totally different kind of characters, one is more traditional.
Yeah.
I do not think the Robinson, Harris, and Senberg, I like to add him because he does the back end. Starman, and he's an amazing artist. He's got a new comic out, and his art is progressed, and it's gorgeous. It's one of the Ghost Machine books. It is Halo and Heat or something. It's about two kids. Yeah, two kids that are adopted. One's a devil, one's a demon, and one's an angel.
Oh,
and their brother and sister. Yeah, it's cute. It's Ghost Machine stuff. It's good stuff. Everything's been good, even the horror stuff. And I hate horror comics. Right. I don't hate them. I just don't like them. But this is. I just think it's because they're so different, and to fold him in this way and basically just give us a history lesson of him.
Yeah, it's really well done, because it works for someone like me who hadn't read the Will Payton book. And as we say, it's a useful recap. And I suppose it must have been a nice thing for people who were fans of Will and who missed his book. I mean, it's a similar thing, like, I suppose, like, say you're a fan of a particular Doctor Who, and then they stop being Doctor Who, and, you're maybe not as much of a fan of the next Doctor as the one that you were a fan of. So I would say maybe it's maybe the equivalent of, I'm a big Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy fan. A lot of people didn't like them, so it's kind of like maybe a story being told with another Doctor that's referencing them, and you're sort of going, "Oh yeah." I mean, it's even there's probably a better way of putting it. I'm trying to think of a comic book comparison where I liked a particular version that was then cancelled and another version was brought in. There's probably dozens, but I just can't think of any at the moment.
Well, I mean, I think that I got an example for me. I'm a big fan of the Teen Titans from Bronze Age through Johns, ever since New 52 until recently when Tom Taylor took it over. I'm not intrigued. And I've had to read some of them. Like I was reading a DC Suicide Squad event.
Right.
And it crossed over into Titans Academy. And I know no point of reference to who these characters are. I don't find them that intriguing. So I could see someone who didn't read, like I wasn't buying comics really when Will came out. And I would have bought a Roger Stern comic, at least to try it.
Sure.
And I probably would have stuck with this book. Having read his first one, do I think it's a great comic? No. Do I think it does what it said, what's supposed to do? Yes. Maybe if he had stayed on longer, he would have, because he's good at, he'll play the long game with a plot line, not like Claremont would, where it's overdone, but seed it, and then he's more like Englert. We'll have a bunch of adventures, and then we'll tie it up.
Yeah.
But this one I like. I mean, and I've just gotten into the new teams, which is they're the ones that are assigned to kill him off. But I like this because of that. It gives you all the references. You get to see he has bad guys, and he's on an adventure. He's chasing this crazy.
Yeah.
He is chasing these two robbers that have been killing people.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I can't remember them, but the ones that there's a Sissy Spacek Martin Sheen movie about this couple. By Terrence Malick, where it's just a couple on the road and they're just robbing to make a living, and he's kind of crazy, so there's a lot of death.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that it's in Turk County.
I remember the time when I read it, they put me in mind of Tim Roth and What's Her Face at the start of Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, it's great. I mean, it's a sort of chase between Will and the baddies. What are they called again? Because they come back, don't they? Spoilers.
Yeah. Hold on. Scroll down on this. It's the Bodines, Aaron and Lupe Bodine.
Yeah. Because it's sort of it's quite straightforward. It's a very straightforward story because you got Will chasing him and he's monologuing about his own worth, interspersed with the Shade recapping his career and the Shade giving his opinion that Will was a good Starman and he was a good superhero because he didn't have a legacy to live up to. He didn't have a dead relative to avenge. He had the powers and he just did the right thing. And that's enough. It's really, really good. And I think it works. I think its main function is to give readers of the James Robinson series some context for this other Starman because he's going to become a bit more relevant to the plot.
Yeah, and it's kind of incredible. I mean, we're over 3 years in, and really Ted's played a big part. Michael's played a big part. David's death has played a big part.
Yeah.
No, David's played. I must change that. David's part because he appears every year.
Yeah. Gavin has been referenced in the first annual, so we're aware of him. So Will's the only one that hasn't really been, apart from his tiny one-page cameo a couple of years ago, at the end of one issue, hasn't really been actively, covering the narrative. And the big thing that James is doing, obviously, is talking about all the different Starmen. So he really had to get to him at some point, I think.
Yeah, I like it. And we get to the point where he goes on Walkabout. We were talking about this before. Instead of a trash costume being in a trash can, it's hanging on a cactus. It's still a reference to that Spider-Man cover, I think.
Yeah. That was a great cover.
Yeah, I like that they have a shoot at that panel is right at a thing of where you could see this kind of diner on the highways of America, Big Chief Diner with a giant
Yes.
Indian. When I was a kid, I used to go to church camp in a town called Orkney Springs, Virginia. I loved it. It was in the middle of nowhere. But with the big part, we would stop at this diner that had a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex out in its parking lot.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So we're going to stop at the dinosaur diner. My mom was like, yeah, we'll stop at the dinosaur diner. But it's great to see him. And it goes all the way through. I'm up to the point. It gets
Yeah,
to David.
it mentions his how he met Batman a couple of times and how he encountered Valor. We also, I'll hold it up for the benefit of our YouTube viewers. We get a nice full page advertisement for Starman Annual Issue 2, part of the Pulp Heroes strand, which they did in 1997. So you got Young Romance, My Greatest Adventure, Weird Western Tales, all these, genre type anthology books, but they put the heroes into stories of that genre. Some brilliant stuff. I would do a Pulp Heroes podcast if I had the time and inclination. I would do every single one
Those
of
are great. DC did those, and Marvel did them too. Marvel's had a couple good ones, but most of them were like, and they'd be four. They'd tag them for it again. But I like this Pulp. I like the previous one. We talked about the one which was about the future.
Yeah, there was some good ones, like, because there was
the fairy tale one.
There was a really good Green Lantern one, which is basically just an Edgar Rice Burroughs novel. Kyle goes into a painting. Phenomenal. Really, really good.
I'm gonna have to look that up. Because they're.
I don't think there were Legion annuals that year, but there was a Supergirl annual that featured Supergirl and Brainiac.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a nice panel that recaps Rampage and Power Girl and Phantom Lady's involvement.
Yeah.
And then, as you say, there's a couple of pages that mention when he met David, and there's been some discussion on. Shag Matthews has just started his JSA in the 90s strand on Justice Society Presents, and there's been some chat on there. A few people sort of saying that they didn't like how Ted was illustrated with a green cowl in some issues of that series, but here we see David with the green cowl, and it looks fine. Looks great.
That's how they're telling David apart.
Yeah.
I forget. Did he look that way in issue 1? No.
I can't remember.
I'd have to go back and look.
What his trading card looked like.
Well, when Snyder brought back the Justice Society, which I'm just calling an aberration because it made no sense, the lineup made no sense, the book made no sense. Bringing back Will ruined, I think, was
yes
no reason to fucking do it. No reason, unless I think when they did the generation thing and tidied stuff up, I think that was some of it. Thankfully, it erased a lot of that crap. Because they're now Johns and even Lemire are going to go, no, Jack is retired with a kid, and we're fixing that, and Will's dead. I had a real issue with that.
Yeah, I didn't. They've all been in one of the boxes of stuff to read. And I remember just sort of by osmosis from what other people were talking about, seeing that Will Payton was back, and he seemed to be using Jack Knight's staff, and they were using Jack's logo on the cover, and I was like, what's going on? And it kind of seemed to be ignoring the continuity that James Robinson had established. That
it's more than that, man. It just they have Amazing Man and Liberty Bell in the team when they're reincarnated. I'm fine with that. With that. It's just the Will Payton stuff. It's and they kill him off at the end. I think they kill him off at the end. There's some stuff in that I liked that, Batman had a Starro sidekick, was kind of cute. I'm gonna read it. I got to give it a chance. I read some Snyder Batman, and I hadn't wanted it because I haven't read it, and I was surprised how much I liked it. It was a year zero story, and it was okay. It was good, and he's doing Absolute Batman, which I've enjoyed.
Yeah, everyone is telling me that I need to read the Absolutes, but I'm just sort of like, ah.
No, I was too. They're very different. I don't know if I'll stick in the long haul, but I want to see where they go with it, because it's kind of be like it's just an alternate universe, and they're going to battle Darkseid, and I want to see the Omega. I want to see because I like the All In where Booster goes to the future, and Darkseid's dead. He gets to Legion's time, and it's like, what the fuck, and they're all bad. So I kind of want to see
the fact that Booster's stuck in out of the universe is the sort of thing that annoys me because I'm going to have to read some of this at some point to see how Michael gets home. But I'm intrigued because the version of Martian Manhunter, Logan and I were talking about this the other day. The Martian Manhunter looks brilliant.
I'm a big fan of Xavier Rodriguez's art.
Yeah,
His Defenders run, the 2 books were astonishing.
Right.
Yeah.
There's I think there's one issue of the Flash I'm going to at least have to buy one of the variants of because it's a homage cover, and I love a homage cover.
I do too. I wouldn't like it because I'm a Lemire fan. I want to see what he does with the Flash. Al Ewing he's right. It's Al Ewing and Xavier Rodriguez who did those 2 great. They're doing Martian Manhunter.
Yep.
And they did that you read both of their Defenders runs, didn't you?
Yeah, because Pete got me a signed copy of the trade paperback when because Al Ewing was signing at our table at the Glasgow Comic Con a couple of months ago. Because I can't remember. I think Al Ewing's one of the people that Peter got to.
It is. He is. It was him. And I'm a huge Al Ewing fan. His 11th Doctor comics for Titan, are freaking amazing.
I'll get Peter to pass that on then the next time we see him. So that's cool. Does that mean that you've? No, because Misty. I don't think Misty Brain was in the same episode, was he? That's a shame.
No, he was. I think he was the crowd voice in that. Yeah, no, he was the mumbling of the crowd. Yeah,
yeah. So that's quite.
I'm a huge fan of his. I'm a huge fan. His Doctor Who comics is great. If you haven't read it, folks, it's great. He basically reinvents David Bowie as an alien and gives him a new name, but it's supposed to be David Bowie, and he travels with the Doctor.
Oh.
I was reading. This is how I would do it. If you could tell how I said this, is I was reading it, not paying. It was Titan comic, it was Doctor Who. I was reading it. This is really good because I don't really sometimes pay attention to creators of licensed stuff because it's normally not it's not normally top guys. But I want it and I read it and I read it and went, man, this is really wow, this is good. And then I finally about issue 8, it's 8th issue in or something. I went, oh, it's Al Ewing. That's why it doesn't suck. I went, now I understand why it is so much better than the other stuff. And the other stuff was good, but a lot of it is just passable and entertaining. Yeah. But his was really good.
Yeah. I read some of the I think it was some of the IDW 11th Doctor stuff. I didn't read much of the 11th. I've got a few of the covers here and there, the variant covers that are homages, as usual, because I love a homage. I'll have to have a look and see if I can I'll see if we've got any in the shop, actually.
Yeah, they're fun. It's fun. Titan does a good job. I think Titan did a better job than IDW. IDW is all over the place, but IDW would bring in good people, Paul Grist and stuff. But
I think Kenny's got all the collected editions of the. I'll give a shout out to the Power of 3 Doctor Who podcast and Pieces of 8 Doctor Who podcast. My pal Kenny Smith does. I'm pretty sure he's got all of the collected editions of the Titan stuff. So I'll maybe see if he's got if he can dig them out and give me a loan of them.
Oh, that'd be cool. I think you'd enjoy it. I think you enjoy it. As somebody who likes his music fan and stuff like that, you'll get it.
Yeah, cool.
But I don't know where we did first, but I checked and no, David has his dad's costume in the Will Payton one. I liked what Tony Harris does at some point where when he shows an old version of Starman's costume, it has like suspenders or something, or it's a gun holster.
Yeah, it's got flippers. There's one when they show it with flippers, don't they?
Yeah.
That's quite near the end.
Yeah, but this one, it's basically, I mean, the plot is you're getting a history lesson, but it's so well done. And I want to shout out, we haven't talked about the creative team because normally, it's Robinson, but this is Robinson and Richard Pace, who I do not know anything else he has really done. But the art in this is stunning, I think.
Oh, yeah, it's great. It has Will looks shredded.
Yeah, he does.
He looks great. And it's nice that I always sort of say with the times past and stuff, it's nice that it gives Tony a break and it gives a different sort of artist a chance to kind of tell a different kind of story. And it all fits really well. It makes it, in a way, it kind of makes him look a little bit early 90s, slightly extreme, sort of shredded and muscly in a way that he really wasn't, but it fits the story, it fits the retro thing. I mean, his hair looks amazing. He looks like
Will had some hair. That was one of his trademarks.
He looks like he should be playing bass in Def Leppard or something, especially on page 7.
It's
that long shot mullet, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Or Superman mullet.
Yeah.
I like Superman mullet.
If I could if I could draw it, I'd be doodling just now and drawing an image of Longshot and Will Payton comparing mullets.
Well, I just look up Mr. Pace, and he wrote in just an Elseworld, the Doom. It's a Lovecraft Batman Elseworlds.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it was a good one. It was one of the. I like Elseworlds. I'm a fan of them, but he does a really good job because he draws everybody good, and he does these little action panels, so you get the entire. Like when he's fighting Black Bolt. Okay, he's fighting Black Bolt. That story. When he's, you see him doing heroic things. You see all the people he teamed up with, that he was a major hero, that he had his walkabout of self-doubt. I do like that they poke fun of that. It's the end of Seduction of Starman, which I badmouthed already, where he gets stuck in the big bubblegum baby.
Yes.
That was, and actually the shade goes, in the autumn of 1990, Payton fought a foe so bizarre. I mention it in passing for other person than for no other reason than that it pleases me to do so. A balloon creature thing. It's like Starman's Shade's going, this is how ridiculous the villain of it was. I have to mention it because it's so dumb. And it because I read it, I went, I've done drugs and I wouldn't have thought of this. This is you know what I thought of too is like I could see this in a Shazam comic from like the 70s.
Yeah. Got you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good point. I mean, there must have been. I mean, I think that Richard Pace must have been given quite a lot of reference material by James. James must have obviously read back through the Will Payton series and made notes so that the stuff he wanted to mention, the Shade box outs, and I'm guessing that he must have, either pulled a lot of covers together or photocopies of a few story pages just so that Richard had the full context. Or maybe Richard had a full run of Will Payton next to him from to flip through, because it's not. Someone must have had to have done the work to prepare all these.
Oh yeah. Because he's pulling panels. He's also he's definitely making references. He's also, I think, he is making an intent. He has an intent to make it also look a little Tony Harris-esque. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That it's not, because the Will Payton book is good, but it never. I don't want to say never, because I'm not really going to badmouth. I think Dave Hoover is getting better on this. I think he gets better.
Yeah.
And I like Tom Lyle, and I think Tom Lyle got better on the book.
Yeah. I always liked the art on the Will Payton Starman when I read it a couple of years ago. It felt very of its time without being, with none of the bad sort of excesses.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. It was. Yeah. I know I'm drawing in the style I'm required to, but I'm still going to draw a comic book.
Yeah,
I think Tom Lyle does that because I liked his Robin stuff.
Yeah, as we said, it felt, as we keep saying, with a Roger Stern book, you know what you're going to get, and it didn't feel a million miles away from Avengers or Spider-Man or whatever else he might have done. It felt proper. I love the soap opera sort of superhero stuff, and I think that's why I don't like the second half as much. There's not as much of the soap opera. There's not as much of Will's mom and his sister,
And see, that's a bad thing. And we'll talk about that on the next episode, where we cover the annual, because this was a shock to me, because when, we'll get to it, but this is setting up something so huge.
Sure. Yeah.
And the way they handle it, the reveal of it is masterful.
Yes. Yep.
That this is the perfect chapter right before it.
Yeah.
Because if you were reading this stuff in order, as it was coming out, it just is perfectly. And that's what I like about the DC app is it puts the annuals where you're supposed to read them with the regular book. Where at Marvel, it's a separate folder.
Right. Oh, that's
yeah. Because there are people who don't buy annuals. I never buy the annual. It has nothing to do with the story. It's like, well, you're an idiot. So we'll stop talking.
Annual issue 2. I had a quick look at Mike's Amazing World this afternoon, and Starman annual issue 2 was published like 3 weeks after issue 36, and a week or two before issue 37, which we'll get to in a couple of episodes.
And then you get a pause in the story, but it's not really a pause in the story.
No.
That's why we're recording these one, because Dave is always going to be for Times Past and talking with David, and he just Is this where we're getting ready for Tony to leave?
Well, this is the thing. The 40s is what the 40s issues of of the book are where it gets kind of fragmented for a while because you get a couple of issues and then you get a times past, then you get another times past, then you get another, then you get another issue. Then I get the sense that I think this was around at the time. I'm going to be tactful what I say here. I think James was having some personal trouble, so he was
Oh
having
yeah,
to
yeah,
do
yeah, yeah, yeah.
he was having to do sort of one and dones and a number of, because you get the Jester times past, the Phantom Lady times past. They're all quite, the Demon one. They're all quite close together because he wasn't able to work on the arc at that point. But I think by that point Goyer comes in, starts giving him a hand, and that kind of straightens them out. I
Yeah.
don't say much about what's coming up in the storyline.
Well, I'm
Sure.
looking at the good thing about the app and on my tablet, I can look at it because the way they have it lined up is this issue, the Pulp Hero Annual, issue 37, which is just his face on it, but it's a Talking with David. I forgot the cover. It was just the month where everybody's face was on the cover. They were copying, Marvel had done it.
Yeah.
And then we have a Mist issue.
That's right. The Justice
And
League.
then they have, which doesn't make any. They have the Shazam crossover,
right?
Another Times Past, I think, and then the Secret Files, and then Another Times Past, and then Jack meeting the JLA, the girlfriends he missed,
yeah,
and then Another Times Past with Phantom Lady,
yeah,
and then Journey to the Stars, then Another Times Past.
Yeah.
I mean, it's packed. And that is, this is We Do Not. Tony Harris's last issue is The Journey to the Stars.
Yeah.
It's the only issue he does.
Yeah.
He only does, oh my goodness, he only does, wow, he does 37, 39, 40, 43, 45, and he's done.
Yeah.
So it's James is having personal problems, and it's when and I don't know, I've never read why Tony left.
I must have read, like, we'll have to have a look and see if James talks about it in the afterwards in the omnibuses or anything.
Yeah, because he does, but I like Steve Yell, and I really am a huge fan of Sundberg, who take over. So I kind of I miss Tony, but I think I'd love to have seen him draw Journey to the Stars and Grand Guignol.
Yeah, I remember.
But I'm not disappointed in who did.
That's fair. I remember at the time kind of wishing that that Tony had stuck around. But when I reread it all during lockdown, I was like, yeah, Peter. Is it Singeberg? Is that how you pronounce it?
I'm guessing. I can barely speak English, let alone Scandinavian.
I'm probably wrong too. But Peter's brilliant. It really suits it. Some stuff I think Peter has a more relaxed, I think, way of storytelling than Tony, and I think that Tony's, it would have been spectacular at points, especially the Grand Guignol, but Tony is suited to it perfectly. It really works really well. It plays definitely. I think James starts writing to his strengths.
In the later parts, I think so. I think the later issues, because I remember when it was coming out, people say Grand Guignol is so long, it's so long, it's so long, and I don't feel it was.
No, it's excellent.
I think this book from beginning to end, and my big problem with a lot of the type of fiction I like is its authors don't stick landings right because they think they have to. My big problem with modern, especially now, I'm enjoying Doctor Who right now. I think it's well made, it's entertaining, it's what they're being paid to do, but it doesn't stick the landing because they have to they don't make the threat personal. They make it operatic.
Yeah.
And
it's
too much. Why don't you save a village? Why don't you save a family?
It's like I think you were saying on one of your other episodes I was listening to the other day, it's instead of trying to save the universe, save the town.
Yes, because the Starman does all this and then sticks the landing because, we both know, and if you're reading along, you will not be unsatisfied with the ending.
Yeah.
of this series, because there is a big thing at the end, but the big thing is not the conclusion. The little person, the thing, Jack's life, is what's important, and his family's life.
The ending's phenomenal. The last 2 or 3 issues of the series are great.
It's kind of like how to do a 3-ending movie without it being the Return of the King.
Got you. Yeah. yeah.
But
it'll be good to get there. Right. So that's been
okay. Let's kind of wrap this up. This is overall, I think this is a great issue. When I remembered it before we went into it, I forgot how, when I was doing the homework for it, I was like, oh, this is not just a throwaway to just like some of the other ones. They're just giving you history. This one is giving you history and then setting something up.
Yes.
And it is incredibly, these 3 issues. And I'm glad we're folks, we're going to record this all in one big batch.
Yeah.
Because that way I can get caught up and saved, because I'm going to need Dave again a bunch, because I cannot do a Shazam comic without you on it, and that'll be fun. We may do that as one big episode anyway, the 4 parts, because
I have lots to say about Jerry's Shazam book, because it was so good.
Oh God, it is. Where, again, DC, make collections. You're thank you for speeding up your putting out of new trades and compendiums and omnibuses. Your input, your output is incredible. There is so much stuff I want, but Paul Levitt's Legion and maybe Jerry Ordway's Shazam and Ostrander, Mandrake, Martian Manhunter, and Spectre, please.
Yeah, they've done 2 volumes of Jerry's Shazam, and the second one was rescheduled and delayed and stuff, and there's been no word on a third. And just come on, guys, well,
it's this one's great overall. I mean, I'm looking forward to go back in to read it more. Will, I'm not going to do it for a bit, because I'm not. What I'm going to be doing is, folks, there's not going to be a Ted's episode with these. I'm not going to do Ted or any of the other heroes. It's just going to be me and Dave talking about these next 3 issues, and then I'm going to do a Ted episode either in between first and 1 and 2 and 1 2, where I do the 3 Adventure 77, 78, and All-Star Comics 13. Right. As one quickie episode to get back on Ted, because we've had Solomon Grundy and we've had other people. I've been pulling other people in, but I got to get back to Teddy.
It feels like a while since we've had Ted, so it
has been a while. It's and I've still got 4 more Burnley, and then I can't wait to get to the Gershwin. I love to say it now, because he is a Gershwin. He is a relative of the other Gershwins.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. But I'm in volume 2 of the. Do you have the archives of Ted?
Yes. Yeah, I've got them both.
Oh, they're good comics, folk, but it's repetitive. Yeah, there's something about Golden Age. The plots are very simple, so sometimes you get the same plot a lot.
Yeah.
But that's it for this. So I don't think I'm going to ask for recommendations, because we're going to be doing this 3 times. So me and Dave will have recommendations in a few weeks when you have the 3rd part of this. Yes. But I really like this one, and I'm hoping going forward to I may jump into a little more Will.
Yeah,
because I need to. All right, folks, that's it for now. We'll be back in 2 weeks, but me and him will be back in after a short break, and we'll be back with Starman Annual 2. It's pulp-ish. It's the pulp series, and I know you're going to like it. And as always, be safe, be smart. Please be kind to one another. In America, we're about to have a huge change, and it ain't going to be good. But read some comics, read some Starman, read some Will Payton. All right.